You've landed at the edge of what medicine has known and what it's becoming. I'm Dr. Richard Rocker, and this is the Integrative Continuum, a podcast bridging biology, energy, and human potential. In each episode, we explore how quantum biology, frequency medicine, and ancient healing systems are transforming our understanding of health. This is where mitochondria meet meaning and blood work meets bioenergetics. Subscribe now and join me on the frontier of integrative healing, where science and soul are no longer separate.
Welcome to the Integrative Continuum. I'm Dr. Richard Rocker. As always, this podcast is about exploring health, medicine, biology, and human potential with curiosity, open-mindedness, and a commitment to standing by the truth as I know it and as I continue to learn it. Today, I am joined by Dr. Amy Beheimer. Amy is a pharmacist, a nationally board certified health and wellness coach, and the host of the Autoimmune Health Secrets Podcast. What makes Amy's work especially powerful is that she brings together both professional clinical training and lived personal experience. Amy lives with multiple sclerosis herself, and through that journey, she has developed a very practical, compassionate, and realistic approach to helping people with autoimmune disease and chronic illness create better health after a diagnosis than before. Amy's work focuses on the practical side of healing, not just understanding what to do, but what actually helping to turn information into consistent action. Through her Habit Hub for Autoimmune Health framework, she helps people move away from overwhelm, confusion, and information overload, and towards simple, science-backed habits that can support energy, resilience, nervous system regulation, and overall well-being. This is an important conversation because so many people dealing with autoimmune disease are trying to navigate a world of medication decisions, diet advice, lifestyle protocols, supplements, stress, fatigue, fear, and uncertainty. And often the missing piece is not more information, but the ability to implement the right steps consistently in a way that feels achievable and sustainable. So today we'll be exploring autoimmune health, behavior change, coaching, habit formation, resilience, the role of the nervous system, the patient journey after diagnosis, and how people can begin to rebuild a sense of agency in their own health. It's a pleasure to welcome Dr. Amy Beheimer to the Integrative Continuum. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. We have a lot to cover.
And we do, don't we? Huh?
We do.
So let's get into it. So, Amy, for the listeners who may not know your work, can you tell us a little bit about your background? What led you into pharmacy, health coaching, and autoimmune health?
Absolutely. I always say I have three hats. I have the pharmacist hat, the coach hat, and the patient hat, the person who's actually living with this. But I first heard the word autoimmune when I was in my teens and I was diagnosed with vitiligo. That was number one. I was in pharmacy school in my early 20s and I started to learn about these human bodies, what could go right, what could go wrong. And the part I remember sticking out was, hey, if you get an autoimmune disease, your chances of getting another one are pretty high. And I just remember that really sticking with me of like, oh, goodness, okay. And my second autoimmune diagnosis came when I was 25. It was a thyroid Graves' disease. And it wasn't until I was 27 that my third diagnosis, multiple sclerosis, came. And that one really was the one that shook my life quite a bit. It really landed differently. I was absolutely devastated. Again, knowing what I knew, and it really set me down a different path in my career, in my health, in my life. I at first really dove into functional medicine for myself. You know, what could I be doing to help prevent a fourth and a fifth diagnosis and to make these diagnoses as calm as possible? And I realized pretty quickly I did not want to become a practitioner. I was fascinated by how simple habit change can really change so much about how we feel and function, yet 95% of the world has trouble with it. And so that fascinated me and really led me down the path of coaching, where I want to be in this with people, not talking about what can help, but really helping them with the how.
Okay. So you just said your third diagnosis with multiple sclerosis. So, how did your own diagnosis change the way you viewed your health, medicine, and patient experience?
It really opened up the world of lifestyle, right? So we learn in conventional medicine that you have genetics, and that has a big contribution to what diseases we're going to get or not. But there's this huge part of our lifestyle, our habits, our environment. And we didn't learn a whole lot about that. We just learned that that part was there. And so instead, I'm like, wait, but this is the majority. This is what impacts how it progresses, if it progresses. And so it just felt limited to stick only with my conventional medicine realm. And so I just knew that I wanted to learn more, and more specifically, the things I could influence, the things I could control. So it really led to, an empowerment, an ownership of the things I could control. Like there are absolutely things that today I can't control. And it's accepting those, feeling those, grieving those, and at the same time, choosing what I can do as well.
Mhm, mhm. So, so was there a point when you realized that your clinical medical knowledge wasn't enough and that people needed more support with behavior habits implementation?
Very, very early on, when I first started coaching, it was interesting because people would say, well, I want to know what to eat, or I want to know how to exercise, or these various things. And I would ask them, have you ever seen a nutritionist? Or do you have an idea of maybe 3 changes you know you could do for your diet? Everybody knew something that they wanted to do. It was just the follow through. It was the I'm just not consistent, or there's so much I could do. And I realized that is my sweet spot, is how do we actually take what we know we want to do and put it to work as an experiment on our own bodies. So it's that scientist in me of, we can run these experiments on ourselves, of course, using the good science as a starting point. But until we incorporate it into our life with all the different dynamics, I mean, the best plan on paper does nothing for us if we're
Yeah.
not actually living it day to day.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm a I'm a big fan of putting things on paper, and I think if people don't put it on paper, it doesn't really happen. I think it's a
Oh,
basic
yeah.
coaching technique that we should all be implementing.
Oh, the statistics on, like, goal setting, if we just write it down, our chance of reaching it goes up, like, 70+%.
Yeah,
And so a lot of times, I think we feel like a goal is gonna feel hard, or we may have history of experience beating ourselves up if we don't reach it. And if that's the case, then we have got to rethink goals. Goals can be the most loving, feel good, tangible way to enjoy progress, to experience the satisfaction that comes when we take these tiny steps towards uh, better feeling days for sure, but then also the best possible health that we can in the future.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think I think we learn a lot of lessons in life, and some of the biggest lessons are through our failures, our discomforts, our pains. So, with you having MS, what did the MS teach you that, let's say, pharmacy school never could?
Mm, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever answered one in that way. What it taught me was that I could survive my worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So I've had a few of those moments in my almost 42 years,
Yeah.
but that was definitely one that, in that waiting period, if anyone's been waiting for a diagnosis or trying to figure out what's going on, you likely are running through scenarios. Oh, it could be this. Maybe even your doctor's telling you it could be this. MS really was my worst case scenario. And it, you look back and it's been almost 15 years. I not only survived it, but I was able to use it to create something that I never would have created otherwise. And everything I share today, like, it's not just me. One of the things that I really want to always be saying is that nobody is exempt from being able to shift how we think about things is the ultimate thing. Like, I think too many times we hear, well, just think positive, be grateful, find the sunny side. There's a real tangible how to actually doing that. And so it was the scientist in me that when I was diving into all this research, not only on the habits that can help, but the how do we actually change our habits? The neat thing that I discovered that nobody was talking about was that how we think and feel is habitual. Like the neural pathways for the thoughts we go to and we think over and over again, and the feelings that are not comfortable, but our body knows them, those
Mm.
are habitual. And so figuring out how to tangibly take the real life strategies we use to change what we eat or how we move, I applied those to how I was thinking and how I was feeling. And seeing that is what really made me realize, oh, I gotta talk to more people and I gotta help people with this as well, because
Yeah.
you don't have to call yourself an optimist or a pessimist. I can make it a habit to feel more optimistic.
Yeah. And I think it goes to tell us that not everything is just on a physical level, because
Yes.
I think a lot of us have been conditioned that way, that health and wellness is also on a mental, psychological, emotional, spiritual, all those kind of levels. And from what I've learned in the past, Western medicine, they go with what would they call this upward causation model. You
Yep.
know, it's yeah, everything is physical and everything is coming from that, where more of an Eastern kind of way of looking at it as a downward causation model. And there you're going, well, all the physical things happen because all the other levels above it are out of balance,
Yeah.
which tends to make a lot more sense to me. Yeah.
And they're all happening concurrently. So anybody
Right.
listening, think about the last healthy habit that you did. What are you thinking and feeling while you're doing it? Because, that changes our biology in terms of how the habit even impacts our body and our cells. So that, like you said, the mental and the emotional layers, they're accompanying everything we're doing or not doing.
Yeah. So So then when someone is first diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, what are some of the emotional and practical challenges that they commonly face?
A lot of grief is usually happens, whether it's grief, the loss of just a life before you had a diagnosis that, showed you that things could look different in your health. Sometimes
Mm,
there are symptoms or loss of ability that come with the diagnosis that need to be grieved. I would say overwhelm is an emotional experience for most everyone. Uncertainty. Uncertainty is huge. I say fatigue and uncertainty are the symptoms that bind people living with autoimmunity, because we all of a sudden feel like there is a lack of control in our health because of this diagnosis. So amongst those, and I don't know if anybody can validate that, if you've ever had a diagnosis like that, did I feel overwhelmed? Did I feel uncertain? Did I feel some loss? And I'm willing to bet that one or a few of those um, were at play.
yeah, absolutely. I think I think uncertainty comes in many different ways. I know when I see patients coming in and I get the history of who have they been to, maybe other doctors or other specialists, and it seems there's an uncertainty there as well with what they've been told, what has been described to them, that people are leaving the office and they're still uncertain. They really don't know what's going on, what to do, etc. Have you found that yourself?
Absolutely. I mean, in my pharmacist life, how
Right.
many presentations have I given, right? We
Mm,
we create PowerPoint slides for what are facts, right? Like what seems to be the whole truth. So if you were to take an autoimmune diagnosis, likely I would be sharing that it's chronic,
mhm,
progressive, can be disabling, these big scary words that aren't the entire picture. It can be a fact that these things are happening, but if our minds are not managed, or we're not aware that that's the only path we're letting our brain go towards is that future, then it can really start to drive how we're feeling all day long.
mhm,
And so one of the first realizations I had when I started working with people was I saw a definition of health, and it said the absence of symptoms or disease. I mean, that's what you can find in a textbook. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work for me. And it's not going to work if I'm claiming to help people, feel healthy, right? Because all I care about is how people are feeling. Are they feeling healthy? Are they feeling happy? And so for myself, I thought, well, if I want to feel healthy, what is my definition of health? Because it has a disease, it has some symptoms, but I still want to be able to feel healthy. So that's where the term autoimmune health came from, was not only the health that I still have and that all of us still have, even though we have a diagnosis, trying to take all the attention of what's going on in our health. There are still parts of us that are doing well. If we're here breathing, our lungs are doing well, our kidneys are filtering our urine. But this disease is trying to take over the entire focus of health. So autoimmune health not only acknowledges there are parts of us that are healthy, and my favorite part of it is there are things that I can do starting today that will increase my health moving forward that I would never have tapped into if I wouldn't have gotten this diagnosis. And so that really can be something interesting for anybody listening to think about, of, how much attention are we giving to the disease side of things versus the autoimmune health that we have and can create.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is a mindset, when you look at about it, even when somebody gets a quote unquote diagnosis, sometimes maybe yes, you have to inform the patient, but maybe not being, I don't want to say brutal about it, but that, when somebody gets a diagnosis, they automatically, you see the whole energy
Yep.
drops and everything. So what would be a good example off the top of my head? Let's take something easy. You have osteoporosis, where maybe I could say, well, there seems to be a little bit of, you're losing some minerals, and there's a little bit of thinning in the bones. So we just need to adjust this, and this, right? Yeah. And I think we could do that with almost any condition that's been quote unquote diagnosed.
Yeah. And you said the word mindset. I mean, if I if I'm honest, I mean, so much of the reason I became a coach, and I think the greatest strides in my health are really looking at my mindset. And what I always like to differentiate for people is not that our disease is in our mind. It's that we can use our mind as a powerful lever to make the other things better. And so again, it's so many people with autoimmunity may have spent some time getting a diagnosis because the lab markers and the symptoms can be vague. So mindset is not meant to say anything is only existing in your mind. It's a tool that when we learn how to harness its power, we can, again, develop those habitual thoughts that put our bodies in a state that aren't as, again, overwhelmed, uncertain, and all the emotions that just we know our cells are feeling the negative impact of, and, the inflammatory markers to go with it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So realistically, the story that we tell ourselves and that we continue to write and create really determine our pathway, doesn't it?
Oh my God. Yeah. Our life will be driven in the direction of our strongest thought. And what are our thoughts, our stories? And if anybody's thinking, well, that's easy to say, let me give you a little bit of the how. Like when I was first diagnosed, my story was my life will always be worse. Like
Hmm.
there is no way that my life is not going to be worse because of this diagnosis. And here's the wild thing about stories. You can get everyone to agree with you. If I would have lined up 100 of my colleagues, friends, family, nobody would disagree. They would be like, yeah, that sucks. So it starts not with where I am today, where I'll jump to that in a second, but the first story shift in that moment started with, you know what, Amy? It is possible. There is an inkling of possibility that your life doesn't need to be worse. Because when I told myself that story, my state of feeling went from fear to curiosity. And we do a whole lot more useful things when we're curious than when we're downright afraid. And so it was these baby steps of my story where now I do believe my life is not worse. And if you would have asked me that 15 years ago, my belief would have been real shaky. There was evidence coming at me that that it was. But now, 15 years later, that belief is strong because I have grown it and deepened it and practiced it and made it a habitual state. So we don't have to jump from here to there. We get to baby step our way into thoughts and stories that just feel better along the way.
Yeah. And I think in a lot of stories, there's the moral of the story or the lessons of the story. And I think it's important that we look at that aspect of it as well. That hey, out of something that may seem disastrous, there's something that can always be learned from that. I think there's a
Yeah.
quote. I can't say it word for word, but we kind of learn more from our failures than our successes. Something along those lines.
Nice. Yeah. And, I love to remind people like our goal, and I work with this on my clients all the time, our goal is not to find the positive story and the positive feelings and stay there forever. Our more human, realistic goal is to know how to get back there when we notice we're not there. So one of the things that I often try to model for my clients is how I'm not somebody who is always in a positive mindset, right? It's just knowing that you have landed somewhere that doesn't feel good and is not very useful. And then how do we actually gently get ourselves back to a place that's more uh, nourishing and a more useful, feel good place?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the old storytelling. Boy, do we ever see that a lot. Yeah. so
I bet.
so yeah, yeah, and that's a big thing. Exactly that I see quite a lot. No matter what the situation is, where people think doom and gloom, um, and then there's the opposite. I'll have people that come in and you have found the condition or whatever that nobody else did, and they're actually happy and they're crying. They go, "Oh, thank God, somebody finally found. I'm not
Yeah.
crazy," etc. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, I believe that. I there was a saying once that just totally resonated with me is that sometimes dealing with the dropped shoe is better than waiting for the shoe to drop.
yeah, yeah.
And that's kind of what you described. So, what other stories do you hear come up quite a bit?
Uh, I I'm not good enough. I don't have time. Time is a big one. Too many things going on, and that's where I will walk a patient through, going, well, because everybody, I find people want you to give them something. Just give me something to help with this or that, and I'm going, well, maybe I don't need to give you anything. Maybe we need to take something away. Maybe that's the best thing for
Yes.
you.
Yes. Yeah. There's this can sometimes sound kind of, again, intangible, but the most tangible thing I've created and used to work with people is called the ABC Habit Playbook. And it is from all the science out there, right? Because I'm a scientist at heart. So I want to read what all the experts say about habits and how we change them. And so there's these 20 plays. And the one that goes along with what you're saying, it's called Trust in the Tiny. And it's different than what most people are talking about when it comes to tiny habits. Like do the 2-minute version, just start small. It's different. It adds in the trust in the tiny because if we trusted that tiny changes in how we move, how we eat, how we think, how we rest, if we trusted that they really do add up and change our health, we would be doing them. But the reason that we easily give into, oh, that's not really going to make a difference, or I don't have time for that, is because it's hard to trust in tiny things every day when the winds aren't blowing your hair back with excitement. It's like those
Yeah,
invisible wins. So yeah, the thing that probably the number one thing I offer to people when you're saying people want something, the first thing that I offer and that we work on together is that belief that we can trust in the tiny, and we start to really get purposeful about looking for evidence on why that's true. And there's so much evidence out there once we start doing it.
yeah, 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 yeah. I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly with getting that belief going. Um, and I would work similar line as well, and help people to paint a picture, and say, hey, when we meet in 30 days again, you should be noticing this, that, and the other. I said, there'll be small changes because you can't expect to be better in such a short period of time. I said, your problem didn't come overnight and it's not going to go away overnight, but you look for the small little wins and the small little
Yeah.
victories,
Yeah.
and, I think energy is a big one.
Yeah.
Energy, the currency of the body. And when your energy is improving, even if it's a little bit, that's great, or
Yeah. And talk about trust in the tiny. We always talk about an energy bank. It's like to have $1 million, you need 100 million pennies. And so,
yeah,
to really trust that today my penny is 60 seconds of a meditation, right? Like that doesn't feel flashy. It doesn't feel like it can really make a difference, but we need every penny to get up to that $1 million to feel like $1 million. I guess with the state of the world now, we might need to say like $10 million, and pennies are no longer going to be a thing in the United States. So my analogy will need to grow with the times, but
yeah,
exactly. That trust in the tiny is huge when it comes to energy.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that analogy. I might take that one.
Absolutely. Steal it. Steal it. It's so,
Yeah, yeah,
so tangible.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think another thing related to that, where when we're working on something before we have the big goal at the end, we need big picture goals, but we need also the goals that we're going to accomplish today. I kind of teach a two-part feel good goal system where we have both. We have that thing pulling us forward, but then we also have the one today. And sometimes a interesting question to ask is, what would I show up for to do today?
Mhm.
Even if it didn't get me to the goal, it feels good today. That's good to know, because if we're doing the things that feel good, even if it's something that it feels good just because you're proud of yourself that you did it, that is emotion that is worth paying attention to and
Yeah.
striving for.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, do you ever get into situations where, let's say in your experience, when people are given too much information too quickly, do you feel there's like a freeze or a fear response that happens?
Absolutely. I would say the number one emotion that urges people in a good way to finally say, Amy, I'm going to come work with you, or I want to try something different, is overwhelm.
Mm,
They're sick of it because I keep saying simplicity. And we start with one thing. And almost always people are like, no, I want to start with a few things. And I
yeah,
say, okay, but if we aren't reaching them, the first thing we're going to do is peel back that number 2 and 3. Because if we start with one really good thing, we are learning the skill of how to get that goal that then applies to all the future things. So it's worth it to slow down to speed up. And another play from the playbook that I mentioned is called Follow a Framework,
mhm,
because frameworks work. And one framework that is based on the science of what helps people change is, I call it the 20/80 rule. We need to spend way less time learning new things and way more time applying them. So if you listen to a podcast, if you attend a webinar, if you read a book, you have to spend at least 4 times that amount doing something with it in your real life, running those experiments. And that's when we can really start to see a change, because there's way too much health information. I mean, AI is making it even
yeah,
more overwhelming that I mean, it's impossible to keep up. So it's more about how we're applying it.
yeah, yeah. Overwhelming. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I think there's kind of two different extremes. There's one, the patient's being told, well, there's nothing that you can do. And then there's the other one where there's so much overwhelm with massive amounts of information, lifestyle products, your bag of 25 supplements, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a really big tug of war going on.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, people just give up.
Give up. Absolutely. I mean, a tip or a trick, it's like, I feel like so many things are, oh, try this, try that. I mean, we don't even really know what it's doing for us until we have a chance to make it a habit. Let our bodies really feel the compound effect of those things. And so I always offer the thought to people, like, how would it feel if for the next month you decided you knew everything you needed to know? All you need to do is do something with it. And like, you
Mm.
kind of can see them on their calendar canceling webinars they signed up for, and Stop that constant hunt for an answer that most likely is not going to be more effective than the things you already know if we just show up and do them.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me phrase this right. So what is the difference when you're working with a client or a patient between knowing what to do and actually being able to do it?
So there's kind of two types of knowledge. There's the
Yeah.
knowledge in our brain, like the cognitive understanding.
Yeah.
Like I know that eating less sugar and eating more vegetables would be good for me,
Yeah.
but we don't know that in our bones or in our body until we're actually doing it, right? Like we can know it in our brain, but it's about dropping that knowledge from our brain to our body where our body knows it. So our body is following through on it. And
Mm.
so the number of times like we notice ourselves when we're talking about something like a fact about what could be healthy or what could help us feel better, how many times we're thinking, I know, I know, I know. And it's like I always like to say, it's great if I'm not telling you anything new. It's that reminder. I mean, one of the main reasons goals fail, besides never setting a goal, which we already talked about,
Yeah.
is forgetting because these brains are human, they're processors. They're not storage containers. And so having these reminders to keep the most important thing is huge because the world is going to try to grab your attention. It's going to try to take you off track of this one thing that we already talked about. It doesn't always feel sexy, but like consistency towards one thing feels boring until you start to see what it can build and the ripple effects that it can have. I hope I
Yeah.
answered your question okay.
Yeah. That's good. So I'm going to follow that up with, so then what metric makes a habit more sustainable rather than just another task, another health task?
What metrics? So we call them like measures that matter, right?
Yeah.
So what are we going to measure that matters to you?
Yeah.
And likely people keep like we think of the objective measures, right? The blood pressure, the weight, the labs that go into range. Those are objective matters that are a part of the picture, but we also need to determine measures that are more subjective, unique to you, so that you can point to the fact that, wow, this is working. So it
Yeah.
could look like your energy day to day, not
Yeah.
trusting like, oh, my energy is good today, but really, what if I had to jot down a scale of 1 to 5 or a color system or a letter grade and judge how is my energy when I follow through on this? And you start to see these patterns, and it encourages us in our humans' brains to come back for more when we can start to tie together the habits that really do feel good. And feel good, I would say, is worth discovering for you what that means.
Yeah.
So I've had clients who for them, just the way their brain thinks and the way their body is, they know at the end of the day if they feel. I had one client who said, I feel full, like meaning like full of pride, full of contentment. And that she didn't need to get any more granular. She knew if she felt full or not. Energy scales are really big. Finding the thing that works for you. A habit tracker is a beautiful way to measure things that matter. When you trust that the habit you're doing will help you, getting to see those checks day after day accumulate is something that becomes a measure that matters because it's the small time evidence for how this thing can add up over time.
Excellent. So that's perfect. It leaves me, you talking about habits. So can you explain, you have your habit hub for autoimmune health framework. So can you explain that for people what that is?
Sure,
Because I
sure.
believe it's your own trademark thing, isn't it?
It is, and I had to discover it through life experience. Really,
Yeah.
it was. When I first started, it was like, I am going to eat my way to better health, right? That's like the easy thing that you learn of eat this, don't eat that. And so eating became the focus. Then it was, I'm going to exercise my way to better health. And I was compulsively exercising. And so through the years of realizing what helps us feel balanced, there are these 6 key areas of our lifestyle that we can make or break habits in that when we pour some attention into them, create this balanced feel-good days, which then add up to a feel-good life. And the good news is, I say there's 6, but the good news is every single person listening has heard of these 6.
Yeah.
You have taught these 6. You tell your patients about these 6. It's nothing, I'm not reinventing the wheel. It's kind of a pun. What I'm reinventing is the framework. Again, we know from science that following a framework helps to calm the overwhelm. And so when I offer this framework to people who can really start to see how all the things they could be doing fits in, and how if you, let's say, we'll go over what the 6 are, but let's say you hyper focus on movement, but it robs from your sleep. Or if you for me, this is an example. I was so focused on food and not letting those inflammatory oils pass my lips that my connection took a hit because I wasn't going out and sharing a meal with loved ones. So having a framework of all the things we could be doing, I call them the controllables, right? All the things we could be doing, but prevents the overwhelm because we're going to take them one at a time. And maybe when you get really good at it, you can do a couple at a time too, but we start with one at a time. And so the first spoke, I call it a spoke because of the hub, is mindset. Mindset is behind all of them, but really learning that there's a skill to taking a look at what is my mindset and how could I shift it in a way that serves me better. Number 2 is food. Number 3 is movement. Number 4 is rest and relaxation. So that includes anything to dial down the stress, the chronic stress, as well as sleeping. We know how crucial that is to our health. Yeah. Number 5 is connection. So that's the relationships, which is such a huge piece. And a lot of times people don't think of that as part of their health plan, but it is. And then the 6th is what I call good stress. And good stress is that short-term stress that we take on knowing it's going to feel uncomfortable, but it's going to challenge us in a good way to get stronger. So that's the 6 areas. It's the framework, but it's also the approach as well to how to actually shift some of these habits.
Yeah, no, it's good. There is a really great framework or pillars, whatever you want to term it as. So then when you're dealing with somebody with an autoimmune disease, how do you decide which habits matter most?
This is going to be a 2-part question. The first is the most simplest.
Okay.
Like if you're asking someone, where should we start with this lifestyle thing? Where should we start with habits? Answering the question, where do you want to start?
Yeah.
Is everything. I mean, it's a habit absolute that if we're doing things we want to be doing, we are more likely to make them a habit. And so it could be as simple as that. Another approach is to really look at which area is potentially draining you. Which area is the most neglected? Which area has the most room for improvement to really start to see some gains? So I created, because I'm asked this question so much, I created a quiz and it's 7 questions. It takes 3 to 5 minutes and it pulls in all the science behind it to ask you, where should you start? Because I don't know until I ask you a few questions. And what it does is it gives you a result in one of these 6 key areas. And you can take that and say, okay, this is where I'm starting. And I can trust I'm going to get to the other stuff later. But let's get really good at how we set a goal and how we go after it and follow through on it in this one area to really get some of that confidence up. Is just the smartest move when it comes to our energy and our focus and attention.
Yeah, very good. So then how would you approach a client that would have maybe some flare-ups or setbacks or anything and they feel like they fail? How would you approach that?
A lot of that comes to reframing, re-looking at the story we're telling. So, we have a rule in the club, which is where we really live this approach, but it's we're winning or we're learning. And when we can see that what we used to call a fail actually just gave us new data, it gave us new information about what didn't work so that we can use it to set our next hypothesis, to set our next goal for the week, to go after it and reach it. And so, I mean, like you were trying to pull out a quote from some great wisdom earlier. I think that every ancient philosopher and modern scientist has some sort of quote about, how we can learn from our failures similarly. And so we
Yeah.
really just learn from them, and we look at each failure as that opportunity to learn. And the best part about our failures in real life is that it's information that you can't get from a book. You can't get it from a podcast. You can only get it because you tried it in your real life. And so that information is gold because
Yeah.
you're the one who has to make these things work in your real life.
Yeah. Yeah. So y- you're a pharmacist as well. So as a pharmacist, and I know this question comes up when people deal with functional and natural medicine. How do you view the role of medication in with autoimmune disease?
I'm a pharmacist who doesn't like taking medication,
Yeah.
but I surely will be first in line when I believe the benefits outweigh the risks.
Okay.
And so I would say my thoughts are a lot of people, and not from any place of shame or judgment, a lot of people are making decisions about medications based on things that aren't always accurate.
Mm,
I hear from people about, um, they may bring up a side effect of a medication that impacted 0.05% of millions of people in
mhm,
trials, but that's the thing driving their decision. And that's okay if the decision ends up being no, but I would just encourage everybody to really understand the truths about a medication. So I can only speak for myself that, there's a medication, let's say, we'll get vulnerable, to help with bladder leaks, right?
yeah. Yeah.
That's a symptom-based medication, right? It's not fixing the issue. It's a symptom-based um, medication. I choose not to take it. Do I sometimes have bladder leaks? Yes. But I choose not to take it because when I look at those benefits and those risks, I just don't mind that much that sometimes I deal with that. Now, you take the disease modifying therapy, that there's some good data that it can actually impact the progression of the disease that I have and how it goes forward. Yes, there could be some side effects, but I look at those and I say, I want to take this because of the potential benefit.
Yeah.
And even if I get one of those side effects, I'm not going to go backwards and beat myself up for it. I'm going to say, you know what? The Amy that had to make that decision had a tough decision to make, and
Yeah.
she chose this potential benefit as a possibility. And so it's just, choosing really intentionally, knowing that there are pros and cons to both sides, and really choosing which side um, you're on for those.
Yeah. 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 I think sometimes medications get a bad rap. There are a lot of victories with medications as well. I think probably it's the over prescribing of medications, and using them for too long a period of time where it's not really helping the situation. But absolutely, emergency medicine, Western medicine, when there's an emergency, you get hit by a bus or a car. Well, yeah, you're probably going to need that. And
Yeah.
waving all the sage over you is not going to do anything, even though there's a lot of proven benefits of that. But
Yeah.
we could bring it around to the other way around with supplements. So how do you approach those conversations with people and with supplements in a responsible way?
You're just hitting everybody's main questions. It's as if you work with people all the time because you get it, right? Um, yeah, supplements is huge. And I think supplements is an area, and this is just my personal opinion,
Yeah.
again, with the over supplementation and the over promising. Um, I always say that there are two reasons for us to take a supplement. So I think we should be taking them if we know exactly why we're taking them. And there's two ways we will know, yes, I want to take this. Either we can tangibly feel the difference, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
we really have given it a try. We know what it's doing for us. There are some supplements that we may not tangibly feel different, but we understand and trust the science behind what is happening to know it. Like vitamin D, for example. I
Yeah.
take vitamin D. I don't feel different. I bet you if I let it go long enough, I would feel worse, but I don't feel different, but I trust the science so much. I know exactly why I'm taking it. Magnesium, I know exactly why I'm taking it. It's interesting. The ones that are not super expensive, the ones that are not trademarked and all their ingredients hidden behind a patent, those are the ones that tend to be good data. And we're like, yes, this is good. Some of those other ones I've tried because I'm willing to see, do I notice a difference? But I don't. And I choose to take those hundreds of dollars um, a month and reinvest that in something that I do believe is more tangible. So again, it's just knowing that, marketing can get really, really good and
Yeah.
kind of looking at what resources do you have and where's the best place to put them. I often, when people come in and, they're like, how thinking about investing in coaching, or I'm
Yeah.
like, sometimes looking at the supplements and being like, I have no idea what this supplement does is enough to pay for a year of coaching, and we can get some tangible benefits. So it's really interesting um, how much we just kind of keep adding on and adding on and adding on.
Yeah, yeah, and that's evident when people come in with their bag fulls of not only supplements but medications as well. And I don't know how many times I've had a desk full of bottles here, and I'm going, holy schmoly! I said, your body is so confused right now. It's got so many different signals coming from everywhere. We need to start looking what you actually really need. And I think when we understand biochemistry, it really is kind of simple. And
Yeah.
you don't need bags and bags of stuff. You do the basics right, and more than likely you won't. Maybe from time to time when you're not well, right? I'm feeling a little sick, right? I'm going to take a little extra vitamin C, or things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's all back to the basics. So much of it is basic. And the thing that frustrates me is people will buy, I'm not frustrated at the people because I've been one, but
Yeah.
what frustrates me is there's, let's say, all these supplements targeted at our mitochondria. We
Mm,
know, I mean, the mitochondria is something that, I mean, I want t-shirts. I love my mitochondria. I have taken care of my mitochondria the past 15 years as a primary focus. People will be spending hundreds, or maybe it's not even about what we spend, but we're taking something targeted for mitochondrial health, but we're eating, ultra processed foods way more than we want to be. They're kind of in contradiction in
yeah.
terms of, or we're not exercising, we're not moving, we're not resting, we're walking around stressed. Your body and your mitochondria do not want to live in a state of constant stress. They don't want to process the junk in processed foods. So like shifting back to the other things that also do the same thing is just a useful thought experiment.
Yeah. And, mitochondria is a great, perfect example. And What is the what is the cheapest nutrient for the mitochondria? Well, it doesn't even cost you any money. It's just getting out in the sunlight, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Or or taking a little extra couple hours without a meal. I mean, our mitochondria
Yeah.
can repair themselves when they are allowed to rest and not have to digest. So similar to what you're saying, things that are free and will actually save you money are likely way more beneficial for those sweet little mitochondrias of ours.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm in Ireland. Unfortunately, we don't get to see the sun all that much. So light is definitely when it's out there, we have to get out. But this may be the exception depending where you are. If you're living in Florida and you have sun all the time, okay, that's different. Where I am, what do? I invest in red light therapy, right?
Yeah.
So in the
Yeah,
clinic, we have a red light therapy room, and it's amazing when the winter months when there's not much light, that room gets very busy because
I
people
bet.
people feel better with
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah, I bet.
yeah.
Yeah.
No side effects.
Yeah. And honestly, pay attention. If the things you're doing, if it feels good while you're doing it, like there's a really good chance it's good for you. We can trust that, especially when we start to get rid of some of the ultra processed things, whether it's scrolling on social media or too much. And I'm not saying that there's not a place for, any of these things. It's when we're doing them almost against our will. Too many times people are like, I don't want to be eating this much. I don't want to be mindless scrolling this much. And that's all I care about. How do we be intentional and follow through on the plans we want to make for ourselves?
Yeah, yeah. Um, I wanted to go back to something. We were talking about stories, making people making stories. Um, Sometimes I feel people are afraid to change because they're going to lose a version of themselves, or they're not sure of the person they're about to become. I'm sure you come across that. How do you deal with that kind of situation?
Um, they don't want to lose
Like
or
people are comfortable. People are comfortable in that energy, that story of who I am, and
yeah,
they go, well, they might be scared of this other person. It's just like you know, people are afraid of success, right?
yeah,
And we would go, well, why would you be afraid of success? Yet many people self-sabotage themselves continually.
yeah. It's interesting. My community, we call ourselves Orange Fish, which is essentially it comes from I was doing a presentation at a conference,
Mm,
and it was a medical conference, but I was talking about this kind of stuff, right? Autoimmune health, and I was looking for an image that showed kind of what it was like to be different, to think about things in these different ways. And I saw it was these purple fish swimming one direction down a river and one orange fish going the other way. And I was like, that's what it feels like sometimes in a world where it's normal to be
mm,
exhausted and to eat what you want and to complain about being busy and stressed. In a world where it's normal, you can feel like an orange fish and it could feel like you are different. And so one of the first things is asking ourselves when being the same leads to worse health, feeling worse, all these things, can I embrace being different? Like a little bit of that, getting ahead of it and saying, I want to be different in some good ways. Not in ways where you're judging the purple fish, right? You're not saying they're doing it wrong. You're just saying, I am knowingly being a deviant to the way a lot of things people are and the way a lot of things are just by saying you're going to take some time for yourself and some attention. And so we call it turning other fish orange. Like sometimes
yeah,
just by doing what we do, the people around us take notice. And that brings us back to the measures that matter. Sometimes um, I'll have clients say, just notice who in your life makes comments. Not that we're doing it for them, but
yeah,
people will come in to celebrate and they'll go, my husband asked, what is different with me? Why are you in such a good mood? Or, my kids are like, wow, you can go tonight because you have so much energy. And so, yeah, I would say embracing, what I do is encourage people to embrace, let's be a little different and be the ripple effect, right? Be the thing that can be a good model for why being different is a good thing.
yeah, yeah. I think I think people, they're afraid what they might lose, rather than thinking, well, what may I gain
Yeah.
from this? And maybe sometimes what you're losing might actually be the best thing for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Or, those pieces that you're worried about losing, how can we still bring them into the orange fish version of us? So
Hmm.
if it's seeing this friend and you associate it with a night out with things that you don't get much sleep, you don't eat well, how can I still connect with this friend, but do it in a different way? And it's amazing how receptive other people are to join us in on our goals when we are just honest about them.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, yeah. So you may have answered this already, but we'll repeat it if not. So, what is one small habit that you think is underrated but really powerful?
I have so many favorites. The one that I think works is I call it a date with yourself, meaning a time each day that you protect to whatever this orange fish behavior is, whatever goal you're working towards. So if you are wanting to journal, if you're wanting to meditate, if you're wanting to eat better, if you're wanting to exercise, if you make it the habit to carve out, we can trust in the tiny, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, it could be an hour.
Hmm.
If you carve out that time and you use it for any goal you're going after, that time is established. It's in your calendar, your family knows about it, and it becomes a gift that keeps on giving. So, scheduling time for you with you to use it for whatever, like your patients say, I don't have time.
Yeah,
First, let's create the pocket of time, and then let's use it on whatever we're going after.
excellent. What makes a good health coach?
Oh my goodness, what a question! Because there's a lot out there. Um,
Yeah, there's a lot. There's so much coaching out there, and yeah, everywhere you go, whatever topic you want, there's a coach out there. So, let's stick with your field then. So, what makes a
okay.
good health coach?
I mean, I think that there is some validity to what their education and training is. That's a piece of it.
Mm.
Now, you could meet a house coach. You could meet a health coach
Yeah.
without a doctorate or without that is amazing. But that's one piece to consider. The other piece is experience. Really, do they have experience helping people get what I want? Do they, something I also say is, do they invest in coaching themselves? I think this is an interesting one because coaching, when it's done well, is impossible to do. We can't see our own blind spots. We get to learn about ourselves when we get a little outside perspective. So I think that investing in coaching is a sign that they're really um, uh, can see its power and feel its power. I still have revelations and breakthroughs with all sorts of things because I choose to invest in coaching. I also think that having an opportunity to talk with them, having an opportunity to, um, hear from them, share your story is another thing that can really help with confidence to invest because some programs are a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so really just go off, how are you feeling when you're with them? Do you feel um, like you're empowered, hopeful, ready to take action? Do you feel like you're seen? Can go a really, really long way.
Yeah. So you really want to work with somebody that you have a good rapport with. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I got to be a part of a research study for a large society where we studied 6 months of one-on-one coaching outcomes, quality of life, self-efficacy, symptoms, and fatigue. And there were a few of us coaches doing the study, and time again, people would write in, I'm just so glad Amy has a diagnosis, and not that people would want to get a diagnosis to be that connection, but sometimes just that lived experience, you really can feel it.
Yeah.
So if that, again, I'm not saying it has to be, but that is something that most every person that I've worked with does appreciate. Um, and maybe a unfair advantage or a fair advantage. Again, nobody's going to be wishing for it, but I don't teach or coach on anything that I am not currently doing or have seen work. So people can feel that.
Yeah. That's great. Good stuff. So, Amy, tell us a little bit more about your podcast. It's the Autoimmune Health Secrets. Is that correct?
It is,
Yeah.
and it's based off the idea that the success of Atomic Habits. I'm sure it's just as big in Ireland. The success of Atomic Habits means that it is not a secret that better habits can help us have better lives and better health. The secret is how to actually do them, how to actually make them happen.
Mm.
And so I don't want it to be a secret anymore. So it's a lot of the how of habit change. It's about mindset and, lessening our fatigue and, dealing with the uncertainty of a diagnosis. So we're at 220 episodes. It's um, quite a love of mine. So I encourage anybody who has liked anything to give it a try.
Good stuff. And so, after 220 episodes, what have you learned from interviewing others in the autoimmune chronic illness kind of space?
I have learned that people are tired.
Yeah.
It's interesting. When I first started, I didn't talk that much about fatigue because not to brag, but I don't experience a lot of fatigue. And I really want to credit habits for that.
Mhm.
But when I start addressing fatigue, listeners go up because
Yeah.
you guys are tired. And so fatigue is real, and there are medical reasons for it. There is some fatigue that is outside of our control, but there's a whole lot of it that can be lessened with these penny deposits, with these $10,000 deposits. When we talk about our energy bank, some habits, you may find a habit on there that feels like $100,000 habit because of the boost in your energy. So that's something that I've definitely seen. And the other thing I think that I've learned the most is that we never are done, and that's a good thing, right? The second we can enjoy showing up and doing this work, it just takes the pressure off. And again, if it doesn't feel good, we're not going to keep doing it. So where you're learning and where you're doing health-related things, check in. How do I feel when I'm here? Do I feel like I'm having to punish myself because, I have this disease and it's the worst thing ever? Or do I feel like, oh, you know what? I do have a little bit more control than I think, and I do actually enjoy life.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. So, what do you hope listeners will take away from your work?
Absolutely, that we can trust in the tiny,
Hmm.
right? So whatever that thing is that you want to shift, um, tiny consistent steps are the way to get there. Also that, things like having a negative mindset or um, feeling like you're just not consistent, those aren't personality traits. Those are habits that can be learned. So better is always possible, whether it's thinking, feeling, doing, like getting to go for better is actually something as humans that really does end up making us happy. So we can love what is and want things to be better. And that's a beautiful place to approach your habit change from.
Excellent. One more question. What is one misconception about autoimmune disease that you would like to correct?
That it has to cause so much fatigue. I think that saying we're tired um, I think the disease gets blamed for way more of it than it should get credit for.
Yeah.
Again, there are very real things happening that fatigue can happen, but I just think sometimes we don't recognize that we can make those shifts with some deposits into our energy bank.
Yeah. Fantastic. Excellent. So, Amy, tell us or tell the people, the listeners, where they can find out more about you, your podcast, your coaching programs, all that.
Okay, I don't want to overwhelm you, but we already talked about Autoimmune Health Secrets. So you're
Yeah.
listening to a podcast, you likely know how to navigate that. So we can include a link for that.
Yeah.
Um, the free quiz is a great chance to kind of enter my world. If you ever hit reply to an email, it's me on the other end, and I can answer any questions you have. And yeah, if anybody is like, wow, I'd really like to see what this is about, my website is www.amybeheimercoaching.com. And there's a menu of support options. Playing off menu, there are free tasters, there are appetizers, and then there's the main course, which is Club Habit Hub, where we kind of bring all this together to really master our habits for autoimmune health. But yeah, just find a place, say hello. I would love to interact with anybody who's curious about what we've been talking about.
Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. We'll support that. We'll put that in the notes, all the relevant links and everything like that. So, Amy, listen, I would really like to thank you for your time. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's everything flowed really nicely, and I think what you're doing is fantastic. And I think this is the type of coaching that more people need to really take them to the place that they need to be.
I appreciate you. Thank you for everything you're doing. And it's just so obvious how much you care about your patients, and just grateful to spend a little bit of time with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to our listeners as well for tuning in. And if there's anyone out there that can benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Please subscribe. This is the only way we get the information out there. This is not out on the mainstream. So it's up to everyone here to put that out. And then we can help spread the love and the health all around.
We can cause ripples and find more orange fish.
There we go. Let's cause some ripples. All right. Good night, everybody. Good day, everybody. And we'll see you on the next episode of the Integrative Continuum. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me on the Integrative Continuum. I hope today's conversation gave you new insights and practical tools for your own health journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share it with someone who would benefit, and leave us a review. It helps us spread this message further. Until next time, I'm Dr. Richard Rocker. Stay curious, stay empowered, and keep moving forward on your path to integrative health.